Queen Salima Arbalest speaks with the officials at Natra realm on matters pertaining to the kingdom. Given his competence as king, Ween is regarded as Natra's glimmer of hope. Ween says that he intends to sell off the country because of its terrible condition after the officials finish their reports and leave the room. He also says that because his father is ill, he has to assume his roles. Ninem Raleigh learns about his evil scheme, but she vehemently rejects it. Falanya el-Kabralis visited her brother to see how he was doing after hearing that the authorities had praised him for his intelligence. Ween tells Falanya that Natra is at war with Mardin during their conversation. Given the situation of their nation, Natra's warriors are tense and fearful on the battlefield, so Ween chooses to comfort them with some sage advice. Soldiers were inspired by Ween's speech and began attacking Mardin's army, but they ultimately failed because they lacked mental fortitude. Urgio enters the fray to assassinate Ween when Mardin general gains the upper hand in the conflict. Urgio and his warriors, who were pursuing Ween and believed they had won, were defeated when Natra's soldiers ambushed them. He refuses to give up when Ninem asks him to, especially in front of a flum. When Ninem executes him, she ensures that his final words are never heard, and her soldiers declare Urgio to have passed away without speaking. Following the Glitzy victory, Ween, Ninem, and the officials talk about their upcoming conquests. Ween's attempt to gain less respect by advocating a raid on the Gilot mine backfired when officials were moved by his idea and began the raid. Natra ultimately prevails over the mine. Ween discovers from his chief miner parent that the mine is worthless. King Fusktar of Mardin is persuaded by his corrupt advisors to send General Drawwood and his army to retake the Jurak gold mine, despite the fact that it leaves their borders undefended. Ween decides to defend the mine for 1 month before letting Fusktar buy it back, still hoping to make a profit and suspecting Fusktar is unaware the mine is worthless. Drawwood sends Commander Logan to negotiate peace after weeks of fighting, but when Logan grossly insults Ninem, Ween beheads Logan and personally infiltrates Drawwood's camp and kills him for insulting Ninem, revealing just how strong his feelings for her are. Ween is more capable than he appears because he attended Earthworld's military academy and came first in every class, an embarrassment to Earthworld, which kept his test scores a state secret. Ween learns that the Cavern Kingdom has invaded Mardin through its unprotected border and that Fusktar is dead, effectively ending his plan to sell back the mine. Fortunately, his chief miner discovers a new and extremely profitable gold seam. Ween intends to celebrate, but Ninem threatens him into going back to work, reinforcing his desire to sell the kingdom and retire. A flashback to a young Ween and Ninem in the academy, celebrating a successful mission with a few of their classmates, including Lowell Mina, also known as Loa. Ween discusses with Loa how she contributed to the mission's success, but Loa downplays it. It is also stated that the two of them will never change and that she will visit him when the time is ripe. And quote. Ween awakens from a nap at his desk, and after a brief discussion with Ninem about proper attire for the visiting princess, they are informed of her arrival. Ween, Ninem, and his sister Falanya later meet with the visiting princess, who turns out to be Loa, and she asks Ween for his hand in marriage. Ween then has a temper tantrum in his personal room, claiming that not only is Loa a princess, but she also wants his hand in marriage. Ween is suspicious that this is just another clever ploy by Loa. A large banquet is served for Loa and the other guests at dinner time. Ween interrogates Loa about the reasons for her visit and marriage proposal. Her brothers objected to her visiting the Natra kingdom, but her persistence won out. Ween concludes from Loa's explanation that her official visit is nothing more than a shallow ruse to satisfy her uncontrollable adolescent urges. Loa then mentions how inadequately dressed she is due to the cold weather of the land, so Ween offers her new clothing, which she gladly accepts. After dinner, 3 large trunks are delivered to Loa's room, 2 of which contain Ween and Ninem. They all have an informal conversation until Fish Brandel joins them. Loa orders her to stand guard outside right away, and she reluctantly agrees. With Fish gone, Ween deduces that Loa had her gather information on them, which Loa confirms. Sitting at a table with some snacks and refreshments, the 3 share some information about each other's backgrounds that they kept hidden during their time in the academy. Ween then cuts to the chase, questioning Loa directly about the true motivations for her visit and marriage proposal. As a result, Loa asks Ween if he wants to help her take over the empire. Despite Ween's reluctance to accept the proposal due to his kingdom's military limitations, Loa points out that the empire could easily crush his kingdom with little effort, and that her brothers are locked in a 3-way power struggle for the throne. As an alternative to this conundrum, Loa should ascend the throne. However, she is a fringe candidate because she is not only a woman, and her brothers are more favorable candidates. Ween declines, which she accepts for the time being because she didn't expect it to go so smoothly and quickly. As I walk down the corridor, Ween informs Ninem that Loa was faking her intention to take over the empire, and that the marriage was merely a pretext. Soon after, they are approached by Nanaki, who requests a favor. The next day, Ninem sits at a gazebo with Princess Falanya at Nanaki's request, while Nanaki lurks nearby. Princess Falanya confides in Ninem about how the changes in her brother's life have made her nervous. Ninem, on the other hand, assures her that the changes will not impact her relationship with her brother. Although she is pleased with what Ninem said, Falanya expresses her desire for Ninem to marry her brother, but she declines due to her lower lineage. The conversation then shifts to Falanya's studies, and Ninem suggests that she use this as a way to connect with her brother. Following that, Loa, Ninem, and Fish take a bath together and discuss their time at the academy with Ween, Strang, and Glenn. Gerard Entgedel, a high-ranking noble, is also mentioned as being interested in Loa's hand in marriage, but she finds him repulsive. All of this despite the fact that he frequently sends her gifts and other tokens of his affection and approval. Following Ninem's advice, Falanya hires Ween as her tutor, and they discuss the history of the kingdom of Entgedel. During this history lesson, Ween learns that some weapons not belonging to the kingdom have been confiscated. Ween compliments Loa's deception, while Falanya is perplexed by the situation. A flashback involving Ween and Loa reveals that Loa tried to persuade Ween to join her war ambitions, but he refused because he has his own. As she rises from her bed, Fish informs her that she has been invited to tea by the prince and is well aware of the prince's intent to elicit more information from her. Loa, on the other hand, accepts Ween's invitation. Ween and Loa share tea and snacks within Ween's quarters. Ween mentions Loa's impending departure, and her only regret is that she was unable to secure his assistance in seizing the throne. Although Ween finds the confession amusing, he accuses her of having an ulterior motive, but Loa pretends to be unaware and asks what he had in mind. As a result, Ween predicts that by spring, there will be a massive uprising among the Alliance nations with the goal of conquering the empire. He goes on to say that he had a revelation when he discovered that all of the weapons confiscated from her soldiers were forged in the West. Natura would serve as a stopover for her goal, and the small cache of weapons would be used in the event of a civil war. Ween takes a couple of papers from his desk and places them on the table, noting that only if the weapons were not evenly distributed. The papers contained information about the weapons being distributed evenly among the three factions. All of this was done to keep power balanced and to prolong the conflict between the three princes. This would allow rebellions to erupt throughout the empire. Although Loa claims that if she had known about this, she would have warned her brothers, Ween claims that they didn't take her seriously because of her age, gender, and political influence. As a result, Loa needed infallible proof of her claims and set the stage in Natura and the Gaiuran province, where Grinoi Entgedel has a stronghold. Finally admitting to Ween's claims, she claims that this is due to her brother's refusal and inability to believe her. As a result, she decided to use herself as bait, and Ween believes it will be her ticket to the imperial throne. Ween believes that if the rebellion succeeds, the princes will be executed, and if the victor captures her, they will be able to claim the imperial fortune and throne. There's also the possibility that the victor will declare their country to be the new empire. Loa believes the suspected rebel leader is Entgedel, who betrayed the empire by siding with the alliance. This prompts Ween to wonder what would happen if he told Entgedel he'd turn her over. Loa claims that he would never do that because of Ninem, because Ninem would be in a difficult situation due to the West Side treating Flams like slaves. Recalling what Loa told Ninem a few days ago about how she's still close to Ween, which makes her happy, Loa claims that Entgdel's forces will soon invade Natura in the hopes of claiming Loa's hand, prompting Ween to intervene and save the empire. Ween, on the other hand, sent a letter to Entgdel's manor stating that Loa would be visiting him soon. By sending that message to Entgedel, it would prevent an invasion by Entgdel's forces. Loa, on the other hand, is confident that Ninem will barge through the door to that room and claim that Entgdels are invading. Despite his skepticism about such a bold claim, Ninem storms into the room to inform him of an important matter. Grinoi's son Gerard, accompanied by some guests, greets Ween, who is followed by Ninem at the palace's entrance. In contrast to Ween's polite and pleasant demeanor toward Entgedel, he demands that he see Loa in a pompous and pretentious manner. To match Entgdel's demeanor, Ween informs him that a room has been prepared for him and requests that he wait there while Loa prepares herself. He also claims that a lovely banquet will be prepared in their honor. Entgedel accepts Ween's offer and requests to be escorted to his room. Back at Entgdel's domain, his father reads Ween's letter and accuses his son of being a fool, but hopes that the situation will allow them to avoid dispatching forces. He then tells his associate Owl that his plot to destabilize the empire has failed. Owl, on the other hand, claims that the rebel plot is well underway. As a result, they will wait for Natura Prince Ween to make his move. Meanwhile, Ween laments Entgdel's arrival, but Ninem is enraged that Entgedel was looking down on him the entire time. She also expresses her disdain for Entgdel's demeanor. Ween tries to calm Ninem down by saying that getting angry will contribute to insufficient thoughts and that they should think happy thoughts instead. She believes Loa will attempt to sabotage the banquet in order to pit Natura and Entgdel's forces against each other. Ween, on the other hand, believes she will use the banquet to force Gerard to reveal his father's rebellion plot by using her hand in marriage as bait. Not only that, but Ween claims that Loa believes Natura will join her in her quest for the imperial throne. Despite Nature's lack of manpower, they have political clout that can be added to her roster. Although this would go against Loa's plans, the truth is that Loa hopes Gerard will bring down his own father's rebellion plan. Loa confirms and conveys all of this to Fish, as well as her plans to use Nature's soldiers to aid in the fight against Antagdal's forces. Ween deduces that's what Loa is planning, but he has no intention of doing so because it would involve him in a succession war. As the banquet with Gerard approaches, their back and forth deduction continues. Ween and Loa lavish praise on an inebriated Gerard during the banquet. They also attempt to trap the other in their own scheme. Ween admits they are acquainted, and when the subject of swordplay is brought up, Gerard challenges Ween to a duel. Gerard faces Ween in a friendly duel, much to Ween's chagrin and Loa's delight. Ween holds back and attempts to make it a tie. To compound matters, Gerard attempts to attack Ween despite the fact that he is losing the match, but Ween once again uses the situation to his advantage. This time, however, the plan fails, and Gerard falls to his death. His father receives word of his son's death through a message received from his son's squire. In a different location, Owl considers the dire situation that Antagdal's son's death has created. Fish tries to persuade Loa to return home given the current situation within the bathing area. Loa hugs Fish and expresses her gratitude for having a retainer she can rely on working for her. Although she understands that staying there puts her life in danger, Loa admits that she is not in a position to ascend the throne. As a result, as the princess of the empire, peace with the empire would be her prerogative in the situation. Meanwhile, Ween and Ninem discuss Gerard's untimely death and how the common people will interpret it as him assassinating him. Concerned about the possibility of war with not only Antagdal, but also the empire, Ninem suggests that they prepare for whatever move Antagdal attempts, and Ween agrees. Just then, a servant enters the room and informs Ween that Loa wishes to speak with him, to which Ween agrees. Loa then enters the room and declares her surrender and intent to crush the rebellion. As a result, she seeks Ween's assistance in devising a strategy, which Ween does, giving them a chance to crush the rebellion without spilling a single drop of blood.